Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Women for Humanity. Today, I'm very honored to introduce my guest, Brisa de Angulo. How do you say that? Angulo?
Angulo.
Angulo, joining me from Bolivia. Brisa is the founder and CEO of A Breeze of Hope Foundation, the first center for sexual abused children in Bolivia. A CNN hero and winner of numerous prestigious awards, amongst them World of Children Protection Award. Following 8 months sexual harassment and rape at the age of 15, Brisa has devoted her life to the pursuit of justice for herself and fellow survivors of sexual abuse. In the process, she has survived several attempts on her life and influenced crucial changes to the law. Since the creation in 2004, A Breeze of Hope has provided free services, legal, social, and medical to over 1,000 victims and their families, educated and trained over 50,000 people, brought awareness of sexual violence to more than 1 million people, achieved a conviction rate of 95 in criminal trials, increased child protection mechanisms in Bolivia's legal system, and pushed the Bolivian government to declare August the 9th, the National Day Against Child Sexual Assault. That's a lot. Such a young lady like you. Dear Brisa, welcome so much to Women for Humanity, and thank you so much for taking the time to share your very emotional and incredible story. It's incredible what you have achieved so far, and I'm really proud of counting you amongst our outstanding change makers. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
No, it's nice of you. Before we start to talk about the foundation, let's just to get you, know you a little bit better. How was your childhood and your family?
Starting with my parents have always been involved with social justice. So since I was very young, I was very involved in the projects with my parents, and I was very blessed that I was homeschooled. So part of my homeschooling was learning from real life instead of, being submerged only in books. I was actually seeing how I can make a difference and how I can help my parents. And, they were dealing a lot with preventing child mortality and maternal mortality. So I was always very involved. When I was 14 years old, I founded a school for children. So I was since very young, I can say I had a very, very busy and exciting childhood until my older cousin, who was twice my age. He was an adult family member, and he was also a youth pastor. And very rapidly, he chose me as the targeted victim. And we know that sexual predators choose their victim, and then they start working around it to make sure that when the assault happens, they don't break the silence. So he very fast started getting involved in my world and making it seem like we were peers and he was just supporting everything. But then very rapidly started invalidating everything around me, making me hate my parents, hate my siblings, hate my work, hate everything that I was involved. I was, swimming. I was in the national swimming team. He made me hate swimming. He would start criticizing my body and making me feel subconscious. And little by little, he made me feel that everything around me was a threat and that he was the only person who really understood me, and this was before the abuse. And we see this over and over again when sexual aggressors make sure that they build a web so that victims don't break the silence. And so the first time that he sexually assaulted me, we were playing and he touched me inappropriately. And my immediate reaction was like, whoa, I don't like that. But very fast he said, oh my goodness, you know, destroyer of fun, and this was just an accident, and you know, misinterpret everything. So rapidly I started invalidating my feelings are not important. There's something wrong with me, thinking that he had a bad intention or that this was not wrong. It was an accident and I'm overlooking things. But that was the beginning of him working closer and closer to making me feel that my body did not belong to me. And then he started repeatedly raping me. He raped me for over 8 months, almost daily, hundreds of times. And he used very cruel tactics to keep me silent. So it wasn't only that he had already created a environment where I would not disclose, because I hated everybody and everybody was against me, because that's what he made me believe. But also he put the blame on me that if I didn't let him rape me, he would rape my sisters. Or that if I break the silence, it would destroy my parents, because my parents were out there helping children in need and families in need, and they were not even able to protect their little girl in their own home. And so to me, that was the feeling of, I rather carry this pain myself than create more pain to others. And so it was very, and then after several times he raped me, he started saying, you like this, that's why you don't tell it. So it's like, why would I tell now when I haven't told the other 10 or 20 times he raped me? So it was like the more and more involved in it, the more control he had over, not only over my body, but over my own side. And after in this process, I started hating myself so much and hating what was happening, that I developed bulimia, and then I developed anorexia. I went from one to the other. And then I tried to commit suicide twice because the pain was so hard, and I was not going to bring that pain on anyone else. I wasn't going to bring my parents, my sisters, anyone into it. And I really believe that it would be a relief for everyone for me to die, not only for me, but also for my family. And I saw how much my parents suffer, because we were very close, and suddenly, you know, I am totally distant. I don't talk to them. They see me downhill. I quit my studies. I only did till 8th grade. I never finished high school. And I quit my swimming. I stopped teaching at the school that I've started. I stopped doing everything that I had done. And all I would do is sit in my room and cry myself. And so they saw this very vibrant child who had dreams, and everything suddenly turned off. And they saw that my older cousin, who was also a youth pastor, was the only one who could get through me. So my mom would beg him, say, hey, I don't know what's going on with her, but if you please can tell me. And he would say, yes, I will talk to her. I'll try to figure out what was going on with her. And so my parents sent this relief that this other adult was also involved in trying to support me, who knew what. So they could never have imagined what was going on. But in one of the suicide attempts, my parents took me, I mean, we traveled to the US. In one of my suicide attempts, my parents took me to a specialized center where someone said, this is clear sexual violence. Everything, like she fits every box of someone who's been under tremendous trauma. And that's when I disclosed what happened to me. And I remember my parents saying, you know, we're going to leave everything behind and we're not returning to Bolivia. And I told them, if we do that, then he wins, because he would be taking everything that my parents had worked for. He would take everything, all my childhood, everything that I've dreamed for, and he would win. And so with that in mind, my parents said, then what do you want? And I say, I want to do this the right thing. I want people to know. And so we went back to Bolivia, and I never thought what I was getting myself into, because I was actually one of the first adolescents who disclosed sexual violence. So now I didn't only have my aggressor, but I had my extended family, the community, and the government trying to silence me. And, my house was set on fire twice. I was tried, almost kidnapped, tried, almost killed several times. But then the abuses from the government, the human rights violations every step of the way to make sure that, one, I remain silent. Two, if I was going to talk, then they will punish me. And this is part of the incest culture, where everything around you is created for girls and women to stay silent and to submit to the benefit of the patriarchal. And if someone breaks the silence, it's not the men who are going to silence them. It is other women, it is society, it's everybody around them saying, whoa, why are you getting out of this structure that we already have? It was my aunts who were doing death threats. It was my aunts who were like doing all these things. It was a female judge who was like, it was a female prosecutor who were trying to show me that I deserved, or that I need to conform to accepting that this is just reality. This is what we're born for, and that this is just what it is. And kind of, if you get out of it, then what does everything else mean? And so it is the whole structure, is men, women structures, society that has been created to keep everyone in place so that it benefits the man who's at the patriarch. And usually they put other people to do their dirty jobs that benefits them. So it's like their wife or their sisters, or like to do the things of saying, stay quiet, this is just how it is. And that if they dare to live this incest culture, then they get punished and they get thrown away and they get ostracized. And that's what I felt like. My whole entire extended family did everything to try to punish me for wanting to break the silence. They all showed up for court and say that since 9 years old, I've been after men, because they found a picture where I was 9 years old and I used my mom's lipstick. And so they were showing, South, since 9 years old, I'm this prostitute trying to look for guys. Or they found another picture where I was leaning my head over my grandfather's arm while he read me a book. And so, see, since she's 9 years old, she's trying to seduce men. And so the things that they used over and over to justify that it was okay to rape me was not only from the extended family, from the community, but also from the government. So much that my case passed from court to court 22 times. Nobody wanted to take my case. My case was sent to the Agriculture and Livestock Court, where they deal with matters of animals and plants. I had to take my case to the Supreme Court, which is the equivalent of the federal Supreme Court in the US. And 3 times they found in my favor. And on the 3rd trial, he escaped from the country. So he still remains a fugitive of justice. He's being searched by Interpol. But in all this process, what I found was that I wasn't alone, that there were hundreds and hundreds of children who were going through what I was going through. And that many of them, if not most of them, did not have a mom and a dad that fought as hard as my parents did, that they were willing to leave everything behind, even their families, everything, to be there by my side and to support me. And that I could not leave those children alone. And that and that's when I made the commitment that I was going to use the rest of my life and every day of my life to make sure that no other child goes through what I went through. And that if some of them do, they will receive the support that I never received. And that's when, at age 17, I founded the first and only program in the country for children who've been sexually abused. And my goal was to tell these children, I believe in you and you're not alone, because those are the words that I wish someone had told me and I never heard them. And I was so naive. I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but at least I believe you and you're not alone and we can try to figure out together. And our doors were flooded. Children started coming from everywhere saying, this is my reality. And I started sharing my story on the media, on TV, on everywhere. I just wanted to break the silence. I needed to be that voice that I never heard and I wish someone had told me. The reality is that sexual violence occurs at your own home, that they are done by people that you're supposed to trust. And that's when we, decided to start providing free legal, social, and psychological services to children who've been sexually abused. And so on one side, I am still taking my case 20 years later and supporting other children who've been sexually abused. And part of my own story, I decided to go to law school and become my own lawyer. And I went to also did my master's in psychology, specifying on neuropsychology and how trauma affects the brain. And so I use my two areas of psychology and law to provide healing to others, but also to create legal reforms and to create, to create legal reforms and how to change the dynamics of sexual violence, and especially for future children. Currently, I'm taking my case to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. It is the first case of its kind that the court receives. It's been 20 years and it just got admitted last year, 2020. And probably the hearing will be in 2022. So it will be 20 years of a huge fight to get my case heard. So it's a case where I'm bringing all the human rights violations that Bolivia did in my case and all the cases of adolescent girls of human rights. And then the court has the potential to create precedents and structures so that other children don't go, not only in Bolivia, but throughout the entire region. So if you want me to stop in any way, I can stop, or I can keep talking.
We just jumped 10 or 20 questions. It's fine. No, I think it's of course it's amazing what you talk about, and it's so terrible. So it's almost hard to believe, but I believe you. I read almost everything I could about you also. So you started a Brisa of Hope also with your husband.
Well,
also abused child.
Yeah, so I started my program when I was 17 years old, and by myself, with the support of my parents and everything. But and then I came to the U.S. to go to college, and I would go back and forth. And for me to be able to go back to Bolivia every summer, and sometimes during the summer, I would take college students to do volunteer work, because for every 10 college students, I got a free ticket. And that's how I got my free tickets to go to Bolivia. And my husband, well, he wasn't my husband. He came as one of the volunteers to Bolivia. And when he entered the program, he said, this feels like holy ground and I need to take my shoes off. And a lot of his own sexual violence and family domestic violence that he'd been through, and rape and torture and kidnap that he'd been through when he was a child, became the space became a healing opportunity. And so he called his mom and he said, "Mom, I'm not coming back." And so that's when our relationships, started. We were very passionate of sharing our wounds to become wounded healers. And then we finished college, and then we went to law school. And in law school, we decided to make a Brisa of Hope a 501c3. And that's when we funded a Brisa of Hope. So it was a very local program, and now it's a big umbrella to support children and prevent sexual violence. And that's what we funded together.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And it's beautiful that you have been able to use your wounds and your similar stories to create something so powerful.
Yeah, I think that's why I think it is our wounds also that help us understand how crazy we are. And nobody else would understand my craziness except someone else who is as crazy as I am. So that helps.
And you just told me before that you have 3 children. I'm actually amazed about that also, because you have quite a busy schedule otherwise.
Yeah.
So.
They're very, very strong human rights passionates. So it's a very interesting home where there's a lot of human rights topics and dreams, and everybody participates.
Brisa, let's talk about the foundation or your center, your healing center. Right, because I read that 34% of girls in Bolivia have been sexually abused before the age of 18, and 23% of the boys. So when the children comes to your center, do they come by themselves, or is there an organization around in the world, in the country that collects the children, or how do you find them, and how many do you have right now?
There is different ways that they come. Part of our prevention strategy is that we provide training in schools. So a lot of the children break the silence after they hear what sexual violence is. Many say, "I had no idea that what was happening to me is a crime and that I can ask for help." So a lot of children break the silence there. So we have a response team that goes to the schools and help with that. And then also the police send us, prosecutors. We also have a big presence on the media. So as soon as someone hears about it, they bring it to us. So some of them come by themselves, some of them come by with teachers or parents or someone in the community. So it comes from different ways, or the prosecutor sends them, or judge sends them. Yeah, that's how they arrive.
And how does they look? Are they there? Is it like a school for them, or is it just a center they come after school?
It is, so it works all day. We do have a shelter, but we rarely use it, because one of the typical things that organizations do is that when a child sexually abused, they take the child out of the home. We do the opposite. We make the home safe and we take the aggressor out. We don't want to take the child out. The child hasn't done anything wrong. And so in very, very few circumstances, we do our shelter where they stay full time. But our center, the majority of it is during the day. And we have, so each child, when they arrive to our program, each child receives a lawyer, a psychologist, and a social worker. The lawyer is taking all the legal aspect to court and handling everything so that they don't have to work and don't have to go through what I went through, which is learning the legal system. But there's a lawyer in charge of it. And then we have a social worker who works with the non-offending family members and making sure that this space becomes safe, that the mom and the sister and the aunt or whoever, or a teacher, becomes this really strong support system, because most of the healings happen at the home, not at the program. And we need to make the home safe. And we know from statistics that, and from scientific research, that if you provide services to the non-offending family, there is a greater chance for a child to heal than if you just provide services to the child. So it's better not even to provide services to the child and to provide services to the family. They will do a lot better than programs that only focus on the child. So we focus on both. And we make sure that everybody surrounding the child is someone who can provide healing spaces for the rest of their lives. And then we have the therapeutic aspect, and we have a way array of opportunities for them because we know everybody heals different. And we have, you know, yoga, art, music, dance. They can take whatever instrument they want to learn. They have a gym. They have, so when you enter a program, you will hear this kind of chaos. There's kids screaming and laughing and playing soccer, and then music, and you see a group playing guitar and another one dancing, and you're like, wait a second, this is a center for children who've been sexually abused. I mean, and then you see them baking and cooking, and so it is a space where they learn to live again, where they've learned, find the joy of being alive again. And that's the whole point. How can you find that joy, and how can you start dreaming and projecting yourself to the future? And so every child receives one, one lawyer, psychologist, social work. And our program is not like many programs have, you know, you come here for 9 sessions or a year. Our program is lifelong. Once you're part of our program, you can come as many times as long as you want. And some of them just come to receive one service, like we have political independence or economic independence, and they come to just get trained on that and help with opening their bank accounts and help them with a renewed relationship with a new husband, or, you know, in the future. But so we have right now over 2,000 children. We have 560 who have active cases on the legal aspect. So, yeah.
Yeah. What would I ask? Yeah, I forgot that. I forgot the question. Oh, I completely got out. You also go to the schools and you do workshops for professionals, doctors, psychologists, everything. So you actually have a lot of hats on in your organization.
Yeah, so we were like, our two big things is prevention and restoration. And so in our prevention aspect, we work with public policy, we build laws, we challenge laws, we work in the Inter-American Court, human rights across the globe. And part of it is awareness. So we've trained over 100,000 people, including judges, prosecutors, police officers, and professionals who work with this topic. We have almost 20 years of experience of being extremely specialized, scientific based. We've been recognized worldwide as one of the most effective programs to work with sexual violence in both the justice system and the healing aspect. One of the things that we see a lot with people who've suffered trauma is that they go to therapy. Let's say they have self-mutilation problems and they go to therapy and they get better, but then a couple of months later they go into depression, and then they get better, and a couple of months later they go into alcoholism. And so it's like they pass their whole life just surviving, and we want a lot more than just survive. The kids in the program call it super live. We want to super live, and they call themselves, like, we're not survivors, we're supervivors. So because it's a lot more than just surviving in this world. Is really enjoying life, and then having the skills and the support system and what you need, so that when there's new adversities, you can by yourself walk through it. So yeah.
The question I had before, you say you work with the families, and do you think now that the families, not like in your case when you were young and nobody wanted to support you, is it different now? Has it changed with all the work you're also doing? Have the family, the close, have they changed? They don't see it as the child's fault anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think, yeah, one of the things that shows is that now non-offending family members bring the kids. They're willing to break the silence. They're willing, almost every single case that we have comes with a non-offending family member. They're willing to leave that thing and say, okay, how can I be part of it? And what we've seen is that after 2 sessions of coming to a program, the commitment that the family gets on, we're healing on this together, is tremendous. It's like it becomes this bond, because we often emphasize that it is not the child who's being victimized. It is the entire system that's being victimized. There's primary victim and there's secondary victim. The pain is huge for the mom, huge for the sister. We've all been betrayed. We all have to heal together. And so the focus stops being the child and fix the child. It's like, no, we've all been wounded. How can we change our dynamics? Because sexual violence occurs in systems where the dynamics have already not been okay. You know, where there has been ruptures and interactions within the family that have allowed that to happen. So, for example, the incest culture, you know, not speaking out. And for example, in my case, the not feeling that my voice was not important, that I couldn't say, hey, I didn't like this and I didn't like this, whether you say it was not an accident, you know, because as women and as girls, we have been trained to not make problems. Just don't make a problem. And so how do we work with this dynamics and the relationship to become even better than we've ever been? So when we see sisters and non-offending family members enter into this commitment, the healing is tremendous. And that's one of the reasons why her conviction rate is also so high, because by the time the child, you know, usually in other places, by the time the child gets to court, they're so exhausted, they're so tired that it's like, you know what, whatever, I just don't care what happens. But in this process, when it's been a healing movement where it's finding your own voice, when you get to court, it doesn't matter whether he's guilty or not. What matters is that you listen to my story and we are proud of you and we want to hear you. We want to be here for you. And so the child just tells their story, but with so much courage and strength, because it's not about, you know, whether it's guilty or not, whether he's being convicted or not, that depends on the judges, you know, but it's about your story and your story matters. And so it's a whole different process when they get there. They have a whole support system cheering you, believing in you. So yes, we've seen a huge difference.
Yeah. Do you have one success story that stands out from others?
Okay. We have so many.
Luckily.
I mean, we have so many. I am so proud of them. And I think a couple of years ago, that's when things really started to show, because the kids that were kids now, they're like older, but about 6 years ago, the group of girls and adolescents got together and they made the decision that they would become the advisory board of our program. And I was like, you know what, that's a great idea, because you should be making the decisions and the advice. And then they decided to create the National Network Against Sexual Violence. And it is only composed of children and adolescents. And so I'm not allowed to be there because I'm an adult.
Even if young.
Yeah. But by themselves, they have been able to, you know, continue. Right now they manage August 9th, but they've been able to get political people like the governor and the mayor, and so to be involved and be part of this. And many times when we wanted, you know, meetings, they will say, no, we don't have time. Well, we had an 11-year-old who said, if you don't have time, then I'll sit out here in your door until you have time for me. And it was so hard to say no to this young girl and say, no, I need you to listen to me because you were not able to protect me, and I want you to do this to protect others. So it's hearing it from them. We've had many of the adolescents go and speak at the International Human Rights Commission. They've traveled to Jamaica. They have organized so many things. I remember this case of a 12-year-old who gave birth. She was actually 10 years old when she gave birth to her rapist child. And one of her biggest dreams was to be able to go back to school. And that was all she wanted. She just wanted to study. About 5 years ago, she graduated from college and she's a teacher now. So it's been, it just, I mean, I have so many stories of, what's funny is that most of the girls that come to a program the ones who are at the age are mostly studying law, psychology, and social work. So we have so many of our staff are girls who started the program. So there's so many success stories. And that's what we aim at, that every life, every child is a success story, and we don't give up until we make it a success for them. Not, my success might be totally different for what success for them is, but we don't stop until every single child can find that pursuit of life and really work for it.
But you're also a great inspiration yourself for these girls. So I understand that they want to follow your path. You're the mother god for them in some way. So what is the challenges you're facing in your running an organization like that in Bolivia?
Oh gosh. I mean, the biggest challenge is we're challenges the status quo. And so we're going to receive all kind of threats to be silent. It's been 20 years and I still receive all type of threats to remain silent, not only against me, but against my children, against my family. And everybody who works at the institution have death threats all the time. A lot of people who want to do smear campaigns on our name, that we're actually human rights violators and that I get paid for every time I put an innocent person in jail, or that I am making money out of people's pains. So it is whatever they can do to make my name not credible.
Yeah.
So that is emotionally, that is very hard. There's times where you just want to say it shouldn't be so hard to do the right thing, where you start reading people just talking so horrible about what you're doing, and when all you're doing is trying to do the right thing. So that emotionally, it's very hard to deal with. And so there's always all these challenges on our lives and on our work, and we're just gonna do it as long as we can do it. And hopefully we have planted enough seeds that nobody's gonna stop this movement. And I can see it already in the girls. I mean, there's hundreds of them already making more change than anybody could ever imagine. So that is, it's kind of really exciting, where it says, I could die today and no one's stopping this. And that is just the most amazing feeling. And I say the second most difficult and most challenging situation we face is the lack of funding. It is incredible to me to hear so many people say, what you're dealing with is so hard and it's so important, but we don't want to be related with it. It's too hard. It's too painful. It's too gruesome. And on I hear people who say, what you do is so important, but I don't want to be associated with it, or I don't want to be part of it, or and so that is the hardest part, to find so many few people who are willing to donate or support our work. And yeah, and so every day we are making very difficult situations of how do we spend the pennies that we have, and whether we have to, you know, let go someone who has 100 cases, and how what's going to happen to them. So I think that is what keeps me up at night, is wishing that we could focus on doing the work and not begging for money. If that makes sense.
Can I ask you what do you require a year to run the organization?
We have a 450,000 budget.
Okay. But yeah, it's a lot of money. But that was also one of my questions. It was the fundraising and
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially because, I mean, we are a big organization where we're not only handling 2,000 cases, but we're also working on all the prevention aspect. Like, we're creating structure and legal reform change. So it is a very holistic program. Many programs just emphasize with one thing, which compartmentalizes people. You know, we are a whole. If you don't deal with my family, I can be good here, but I go to my family and my family is a mess. Or you don't deal with my school, I may be doing with school. You know, every child has 93% of our children are graduating from high school. So every child gets personal tutoring, whatever they need to finish school, get their graduation, go to higher education. We work on their political independence. We work on every aspect of your entire life. So
Yeah, that's beautiful, but it requires a lot of funding. I can imagine. Yeah. What is it then what inspires you to continue all this, even if in such hard times? What is that make you get up in the morning? And
I would say changing a tear to a smile and bringing hope. I always tell people, if someone offers me a $10 million job, there's no way I would take it, because there is nothing in this world that makes me so fulfilled and happy to feel that I can use my wounds to bring healing to others, and that their healing is bound to my healing. So being, every time I close my eyes and just see one of their smiles, it's like, that's it. That's it. I don't need anything else in life. And I can tell, as hard as some days can be, I can tell that every day is the best day of my life. And yeah, and that's why I do it. And that's why I will do it until my body gives in. But yeah.
you're a beautiful person, and you're doing beautiful things.
Thank you.
I actually had other questions for you, but I think actually, except if you think that we should talk about other things, I think I will wrap up with what you said, because I think also you have a really beautiful website where there's so much information about you and all the things you do and how people can help you also. You volunteers, donate, of course, hopefully that's what we would like to do. Is there something you would like? Oh, I do have a question I always ask. Is there a woman in the world that inspires you more than others?
Gosh, I think the woman that inspires me the most is my mom. She is such a strong, peaceful woman that, yeah, she's stronger than any other person I've ever met, and she can bring calm into the biggest storm, but at the same time so forceful. Yeah, so I am her number one admirer.
You know, I would say that 9 out of 10 of all the women I interview, they say their mother as the woman who's most inspirational for them. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And I think that shows also how important it is for us to work with the mothers.
Yeah.
Because for the rest of their life, that is going to be your most important bond. And if you have a mother who doesn't get it or who is struggling with their own traumas, that's not going to be very healing for you. And so working with the mom for us is so crucial and so important. And that relationship between them is so crucial because it will last even beyond the time they're with us. So what we can do while they're with us is provide them with the skills and support so that they can be there for each other for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Because it's also right that if you have in Bolivia this mindset that that men who decides, so it's an important work for you also to get the women out of this thinking. So they'd have to know that what they do it's right, and they can support their child.
Yeah,
and they have
I think I think it's a worldwide belief. You know, for example, one of the very commons in the U.S. and you know wherever I go is like the dirty things of the house are dealt in the house. Don't take them out there. So that's just telling people, if you have a problem, talk about it here. You don't go outside and tell that you've been violated or something. And so I think it's changing the culture from every perspective of how to see every individual as a human rights individual, and that they're as important and valid. And, you know, even for example, in almost every single household, when a parent is, let's say, changing the diaper of a baby, they don't talk to the baby. They just grab the baby and pull their pants off and pull their diapers off and change them. And it may be with tenderness or everything, but the mindset of children are starting to become like, people do this with me. They grab me and they make me do things, and it's okay. And so how do we change the mindset of saying, no, there has to be some type of dialogue? And I remember it's really hard as a parent, you know, when your child has poopy diaper and you're like, come on, I have to change you. And they're like, nope. It's like, okay, then let's try to talk about it until they were like, okay, change me. But they are active participant of it. I am explaining to them, now I'm going to take the diaper off because I want to clean you. So letting them know I am part of this process, that when someone doesn't make me part of the process of my body, then I should protest, you know, what you want to wear and how you want to wear it and how you want to be held and how you don't want to be held. You have to be an active participant. So that's a big part of our work, is early childhood development, because that's when we start creating the mindset of, there's always this dominant submissive relationship, adult children, man, woman. And so it's like, no, how does it look like to be able to relate with a small child and see them as full of rights as you are, and be able to dialogue in their reality, in their understanding, and have to come with consensus that may not be the best for me and may take a lot longer, but they become active participants of their life. Sorry, I can talk forever, but
yes, but and it's very, very interesting. And you know, I actually never thought about that a 1-year-old child, you should talk about, you tell them what to do when you handle the bodies. It's true. Brisa, all the things you talked about in the beginning that you realized that it would happen to you when you were going through the rape, is it the same pattern for all the children, more or less?
The great majority, 98% of the children we receive have been sexually abused by a family member. And most of them have the same pattern of building a web around them to make sure that they don't break the silence, and that they don't really understand or comprehend what's happening, that that's just what life is. So many children, when we did that research with over 5,000 children, where 30% said that they were sexually abused, 80% of that 30% were being sexually abused and had no idea that that was sexual violence. So that's the biggest problem. I didn't know that what was happening to me was rape. I had no idea. I knew I didn't like it. I felt that it wasn't right, but I had no idea that it was a crime and that I could ask for help. And so many children are being sexually abused every day and have no idea that what's happening to them is a crime.
That is terrible.
Yeah. It's sad. It's very sad.
It's very sad, yeah. And although we think that today we are there's so much information everywhere, but of course in rural areas, the children perhaps don't have access to internet, or and if you don't even talk about it in the society that this is a problem, how should they know it's wrong? Yeah, I know that. How do you see the future for you, yourself, your family, and of course a piece of hope? How do you have new projects coming on, or are you? Yeah.
Yeah, but well, one of the things is my case is getting to the Inter-American Court, and with that comes with what are the legal reforms that we want to do throughout the region. We're always improving in our training, created, I'm actually working on 4 books right now at the same time. We've published over 23 books. So we're always publishing new books. We are publishing new research, just because our goal is to share what works. So yeah, I guess it's just every day is a new thing, but at the same time, it's getting better at what we do, so that so many resources are not wasted in things that don't work.
Yeah. And how are you feeling yourself after all you've been through and what you have accomplished? How are you feeling today?
So I have to say that I feel extremely blessed. I'm biased here, but I feel that I am married to the most amazing man in this world, and I have the most amazing children in this world, who challenge me every day to be a better person, and who challenge me in ways that I would never imagine, to grow in my own personal healing, but also in challenging the way I see life. So I thought I was very, I could see a lot of things, but they every day show me that I am very blind to a lot of violence and bias that exists in this world. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been part of it. So I feel very happy. I feel very fulfilled. I feel I have so much joy. And yes, the future is not a promise for anyone. I don't know if we're going to have our program tomorrow. We may change it, but I've learned to live every day. And so I'll give today my best. And I always say, if I have a terminal disease and I'm going to die in 2 weeks, I would do exactly what I'm doing today, because every day is the best day of my life. So yeah, I love it. I try to make the best of what we have, and I really enjoy it. Even in when my body aches and I'm in bed at night, I feel happy that my body aches for the right reasons, because I was doing the right thing. So I try to view the things. I love to see the half full glass, and that's what I focus. And I get so happy that I have that half glass, and people around me are like, but we need to do this, and this is not working. It's like, yeah, but this part is. And so, yeah.
And that's important to see what we can do, and not so much as of what we can do. Otherwise, we will improve. Brisa, thank you so much for your time. I just have one last question. You're doing so much good for other people. What can we do for you?
I think what is important, I mean, what helps me is to know that I'm not alone. When people acknowledge, when people, there's so many bad things said about me everywhere, that when someone just says a little, say, hey, thank you for what you do, or like, you're not alone. Um, it means so much. No one knows like how much it helps to get enough strength to keep on going. Um, so I think that is the biggest thing, just to, and not only me, but all the children, let us know we're not alone.
Yeah. You are not alone, not you nor your children. And thank you so much for your time. It's amazing what you do. I have goosebumps over it all, and you know, little tears in the eyes that can come out at every minute. So I think you're doing an amazing job, and I'm sure that you will continue to do that because it's in your veins, it's in your genes, whatever. So thank you so much, Brisa, for taking the time, and I will make sure that we get all your coordinates on the interview so people can help you, donate, and in every way it's possible.
Thank you.
So good
Thank
luck,
you so
and
much.
I hope that all the good things that you do in the world for the children and for yourself will continue to be a success. And
Thank you so much. It was wonderful seeing you. It was wonderful meeting you. And thank you so much.
I send you a big hug and kiss, and thank you so much for your interview, for the time.
Same. Have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful day.
Yes, you too. Thank you.